All right, Shabbat Shalom. Hashem, my Lord, King of Kings, Supreme Grand Master of the Universe, I need your guidance. Well, I need your further guidance. On what? On how you want to do this. How you want to do what? How I want to do what? Well, these last three videos we made, it's just been, we've been breaking protocol. And, what's up, man? And I've only been talking to you. Meaning, I've only been recording myself talking our conversations and not actually talking to anyone watching. Because I want to get more experience talking to each other with the crowd. Because of how much more uncomfortable that is. It's uncomfortable. What's up, man?
Happy Easter to you.
How you doing, bruv?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Very powerful.
Thanks, sir. I just heard a question. What was the question? Well, the question was, how did the mailman know I was celebrating a holiday? Well, it's because the mailman knows I'm a Jew. And he knows that today is Shabbat. And he may or may not know that today is the last day of Passover. Well, I thought Jews celebrated Passover from the 15th to the 22nd of the month. Some Jews do, but Torah law says it's from the 14th to the 21st. So today's the 21st. And being that Passover went from Shabbat to Shabbat, we got two double holidays. Because Shabbat's a weekly holiday, and Passover's an annual holiday. And the timing was just perfect. Thank you, Hashem. You're welcome. So, what do you want to get into today? I feel like those last two videos that we made, the last two or three, got pretty heated. Good Friday. You want me to talk about Good Friday? How I kissed Jesus' feet and how I'm taking responsibility for killing Jesus? Yeah, I don't know what you want me to say about it. I'm setting an example. Right, because I'm an ultra-unorthodox Jew. Oh. because I'm an ultra Orthodox Jew, I don't do things in the Orthodox method, which means I don't mind taking responsibility and doing tshuva for my brothers who are actually responsible. But you know, there was something else that came up yesterday too. There was a reading at the beginning of the Mass, of the Good Friday Mass. Of that one verse in Isaiah that people like to attribute to Jesus. I think it's Isaiah 52. I could see why people relate that to Jesus, but during the reading, I was relating it back to myself. I was seeing my own life being reflected back at me. There's an old Hasidic teaching. What's my favorite Hasidic teaching? Don't lose the soul of God's Torah for the stories that it wears as garments. Which means that Torah is the spirit, the soul that lives behind the words in the books. Where some people equate Torah to be a book, and they're not entirely wrong, but Torah is contained within the books. The soul of Torah that exists within the books is the same soul of Torah that exists within the soul of every Jew. Orthodox, unorthodox, atheist, conservative, reformist, all your other different types of Jews. So when I read the books of Torah, which include the Tanakh and the Gospels and the Quran, because Torah can be found in all three of them. The soul of Torah can be found in all three of them. When I read, I see my life being reflected back at me. And when they were doing the reading of Isaiah yesterday, it was reminding me of how I got demonized in my own life by my family, and not necessarily the family I live with, but the family I used to live with, which included my son and my ex-wife, her parents, her siblings. And how they made me out to be this evil son of a bitch who walked out on his son. And they said all the things that I still hold resentment towards. And there's a lot of things I don't want to forgive them for. Because they treated me like we treated Jesus. Public shaming. I'll even say lying about me. Selling me out. right? Because my ex-brother-in-law sold me out like Judas. And that was something that came to me yesterday, too. Is that he came to my mind after the mass was done and I got home and I started thinking about it some more. My ex-brother-in-law came into my mind because he was the one who sold me out when I was trying to do something for my family. And because he sold me out, it got me ostracized, got me crucified, literally crucified. It completely cut off. To the point that I know that if I were to have like a sit down conversation with my son, just me and him, and say, tell me what happened after everything that's happened since the last time you saw me 6.5 years ago. I want to know everything that they said about me. I want to know everything that's related to me and just me. And I believe that's part of the reason why they don't let me talk to him. Because if I did, he's got a big mouth. And he'll end up throwing everybody under the bus. In the sense that I feel that they don't want me to talk to him because there's things that he would tell me that they don't want me to know about. Because I don't mind telling him everything. Not just telling him everything, but even showing him everything, because I have all the books that I've written, which have bad things written. But I say that they don't let me talk to him because we did an experiment. You and I, Lord, we did an experiment in the weeks leading up to Christmas and Hanukkah, where I reached out to the family and attempted to open the door of communication, open a channel for communication, going so far as to humbly request that they give my son my phone number and also my mother's phone number as well, so that he and I can have a chat. Because he's going to be 18 this year, and I haven't seen him since he turned 11. You want me to talk about all that? You want me to talk about it because you want me to see for myself that I'm a lot further ahead in my healing than I may realize. And you want me to take the part on as the victim? That's what you're telling me. Oh, that's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. That's what you're telling me. So, I don't have any proof per se to say that anything I'm saying is true. Right? I'm just going off of what you have been guiding me towards. For these past 7 years. Don't do anything and just allow everything to kind of come to the surface on its own. Because we're under the impression that there was malicious intent that was predicating my divorce. And even my wife leaving and taking my son with her. This isn't gossip? No, because you're telling me to assume that they're innocent. Or at least, or at least to assume that everything that I believe that they did to me is in fact what you were doing for me. You, God. What do I believe they did to me? You want me to say what I believe they did to me? Well, I believe that they conspired against me with malicious and then weaponized the court system so that they could punish me and have an excuse to take my son away from me and try to control me using money. Because don't care if you're bouncing around, just say it as it comes to you. Don't worry about if you're don't worry if you're taking the linear path or not. Okay. All right. I'm also not an expert in the law, in family law, New Jersey family law, so I don't know. New Jersey and or federal family law. I don't know those things. And I'm just making wild assumptions that there was a conspiracy against me by my in-laws, my ex-in-laws, including my ex-wife, and even my son to that point. But the first thing I'm thinking of is April 1st, 2019, when treat this like you're giving a disposition. All right. That's what God's telling me. Treat this like you're giving a disposition. The first thing coming to my mind is when I was on the phone with my mother-in-law at the time. I didn't know this. I didn't know this at the time, but the divorce date was 1 week following this phone call that I had with her, where I asked her, talking about her daughter, are we divorced or are we not divorced? She won't respond to me when I message her about it. And I would like to know, if we are getting divorced, when is the date? And if we are divorced, when was the date? And she said, she's got a Staten Island accent. I ain't saying nothing. All right. And if you want to see your son again, you better talk to a lawyer. Whoa. How did you respond? I asked her if she could say that one more time. She didn't. But she did say, the divorce papers are in the mail, and she said it like this. She said, they were mailed to your mother's, which is where I've been staying for the past 6.5 years. But when she said They were mailed to your mother's. There was like a little hiccup. There was a little hiccup in her tonality. You know when you accidentally lie and you catch yourself and go, fuck, shit, uh-oh, shit. Well, hopefully things will just work out. Okay, right? You know when you have those like situations, someone asks you a question and you inadvertently just, the first thing that comes to your mind just comes out of your mouth. Just almost like you had no control over it. It was like that, because as soon as she said it, I immediately thought she's not telling the truth. But let's just give her the benefit of the doubt. So it was about a week later that I got a phone call from my father's mother's niece, because I had been living with my grandmother for 2 months before I moved down with my mother. And I hadn't talked to her in several months after I had left. So we were kind of estranged for a brief time. So my grandmother's niece called me and said that she had fallen. She had fallen and was stuck on the floor for 2 days before somebody found her. And she was in the hospital with a broken hip. This is a problem because my father's dead. So when I got that phone call, I panicked. Because technically, I don't. You catch anything? Nah. So technically, she was my responsibility, and the way I saw it was that she fell under my watch. Technically, she was 98, and she lived alone. And when I moved down here, I was following her. I was really following her advice, which was go live your life. But there came a point where I realized, like, if I'm living my life to take care of this woman, I'm not living my life for me. And she does have her niece, and she has her niece's children, so don't feel bad. But when I found out that she fell, and was in the hospital, it kind of scared the shit out of me. And I immediately thought that this was it. Later on, I'll find out that this was it. This was the last time I was going to ever see her. So I went, like I said, this is about a week later. So my mother gave me a ride down to the hospital so I could see her. And my grandmother, the firecracker that she is, as soon as I walked into the hospital room, she said, "What are you here, because I'm going to die?" Yes. Yeah, that's literally why I'm here. But we eventually worked everything out, and we cried, and we hugged it out. And she said to me, "Go. I want you to live in my apartment. Just go live there while I'm in the hospital." All right. Take whatever you need. All right, no problem. By the way, there's some mail for you in the drawer, in the cabinet that's in the living room. There's something there for you. And as soon as she said that, I went, "Oh shit. This is the divorce papers. I know it. I just know it." So I left the hospital. I went to her apartment, and check this out. This is so fucked up. And mind you, this is a week. This is 8 days after I talked to my mother-in-law at the time. I opened a drawer and there was a certified letter for me. And I opened it. And it was in fact the divorce papers. And it had the date of the divorce hearing. Right? This is timing that only God could have procured. When I looked at the divorce date, It was today's date. Not today, but that day, which I believe was April 9th. April 9th of 2018, which is like fucked up because it's like, I'm just on the phone with this lady a week ago and she refused to tell me. But because of this shit that just happened, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time to open the letter and find out that I opened it on the day that the divorce hearing was set. But now this was around 5 p.m. Around 5 or 6 p.m. The time of the hearing was at noon. So my mother-in-law, my ex-mother-in-law at this point, wasn't lying 100% because the divorce papers were in fact in the mail. It's just that they didn't go to the address that she had. They didn't go to the address that she told me they were going to. She said they were coming to my mother's house, but they went to my grandmother's house instead. Which is ironic because all the other lawsuits that were in my name and my ex-wife's name were coming to my mother's house. So it's like, well, you knew where I was at. Why didn't you just tell me they were going to my grandmother's? Because now I missed the court date. I opened the paper 5 hours after the divorce hearing. Which apparently is legal, I guess, I don't know. I never talked to a lawyer, but that's because God told me not to. God has been my legal counsel for the past 7 years. He told me that there was a lot of shady stuff going on behind the scenes, and the only way for it to all come to the surface is if I listened to what he said and did what he told me to do. So we have to ask, like, if my grandmother didn't fall, would I know that I got divorced? But then at the same time, when my mother-in-law said, if you want to see your son again, you better talk to a lawyer. Was she allowed to do that? Was that legal or was that illegal? To me, it sounded like illegal. You know? That seems like something that you should not say. Because what that implies to me, how I interpreted that was, we're taking your son away, and unless you're going to pay for a lawyer, you're never going to see him again. Now, when I read the divorce papers, I noticed that they didn't get me with child support, but they did get me for alimony. And they cut my parenting time down to 0. So I have zero parenting time with my son. Now, it's not going to be until about 3 months ago, literally like 3 months ago, that I found out that there's a difference between no contact and 0 parenting time. So all parenting time with all that means is that 0 parenting time does not negate visitation. What it means is that I don't live with my son. But under no circumstances is it necessary to keep him away from me and out of contact, or to allow him to not have contact, because I also found out, just doing like quick research, that I don't know if it's against the law or if it's just frowned upon, but a minor, even if the minor doesn't want to have communication with the parent, I don't know the legality of it. Again, I don't know family law, but I'm just using the word. I'm just blanket, like a blanket term, saying that it's illegal from my research for the custodial parent to encourage a child to not have communication with their parent. It's actually their obligation to encourage and help make that relationship flourish because of the circumstances. And this goes back even before we were divorced. That was in April of 2019. In December of 2018, I had gone to my ex-wife to tell her, like, I reached out to him, but he blocked me. I reached out to him on the PlayStation Network. And then he responded once, and then he blocked me once I told him that it was me. And she said to me, he's 12 years old. He's old enough to make his own decisions at this point. Now in 2020, we had a similar conversation. I started a messenger group with her, my son, and myself. And I would use it just to write to them. Sometimes I would write these big novels. I didn't know if anyone was actually going to read them or what. But one of the messages that I had sent, when she read it, she interpreted it as if I was blaming him for something, and maybe I was. But then she had responded back that how dare I blame him for anything, because she's proud of him for making this decision to cut me out of his life. She's proud of him. Did you keep hold of any of this stuff? No, why? I'm not taking it to court. To bring the gospel into this, Rabbi Jesus said, and this is a principle that I live by, if someone takes you to court and sues you for your jacket, give them also your shirt. If someone strikes you on the cheek, turn the other one and have them strike you again. Ask for seconds and then ask for thirds. Because, and the reason for that is, we as the individual, we the Jew, are not responsible for dishing out justice and punishment. Like, it doesn't work that way. That's God's business. And it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not, because everyone knows what karma is. And God is the arbiter of what we could call karma. So, my experience thus far is that these people have been intentionally withholding and stonewalling me in relation to having a relationship with my son. Now, I've tried. I don't have his phone number, and I don't know her phone number. I don't know where they live. But at the same time, I don't pay my alimony. And legally speaking, I probably could get in trouble for that. I know the court, I haven't paid it in 6 years. But there's a reason why I don't pay it. Because I'm waiting for the court to call me in for questioning and ask me, why aren't you paying it? Why are you disobeying a court order? We can hold you in contempt. But that's the thing, is like, I'm not in contempt of the court. Like, I'm innocent of being in contempt of court. But I am guilty of being in contempt of my ex-wife and her family. Because that alimony from my perspective, is them putting a shackle on me. Now, over the year, most recently, the summer before last summer, I was in communication with my ex-wife on Messenger, Facebook Messenger. And she said to me straight out, she's like, me and the boy and I, we have moved on. We moved on from you. And my most recent communication with her mother, another Facebook group, it was her mother, her father, and her. Her mother said straight out, you're dead to me. After you bailed on your son, we are the ones who support him. You are dead to me. And to which I asked, but I didn't get a response, was, when you say support, are you just talking about financial support? Because I support his decision not to talk to me, but we're making it about us. I don't care about, I didn't go this far into it, but it's like, I don't care about you. I'm not asking about you. I don't want to be your friend. I forgive you. And I said that to them. I forgive you. I forgive you, Joanne. I forgive you, Richie. I forgive you, April. I forgive you, Desmond. And it's like, my concern is that 6.5 years later, 7 years later, I still am getting stonewalled. And something I said to my ex-mother-in-law was, listen, you guys support him, but don't forget, alimony is not child support. Now, in the old days, my ex-wife, she had a drug problem. She had to go to rehab for it and for painkillers. And over the course of 7 years, there was at least 7 relapses. And what ended up happening was, on the 7th relapse, is when I finally put my foot down with myself and said, how many times is the last time going to be the last time before the last time is actually the last time? Because every time she relapsed and I kicked her out, I said, this is the last time. I'm not letting this happen again. It was a boundary I set with myself. I didn't necessarily say it to her. I said it to myself. And then finally, I went to my brother-in-law at the time, and I called him one morning and I told him that I was planning on doing an intervention with my wife. This was May 8th. Oh, I'm sorry, May 7th, 2018. It was the day before my father, the third anniversary of my father dying. And I asked him some questions some relevant questions, because he had been in this somewhat similar situation. He had the most experience with opiate addiction. So I told him what I was planning, and he told me that everyone had suspected that there was something going on with her, and that the family would be proud that I'm doing what I'm doing. And I was proud of what I was doing as well, because I was taking my life back into my own hands. My family life as well. And I had a set plan of what I was going to do that particular day and how I was going to handle the situation. I was going to call him first. Then I would wait till around lunchtime and call my mother-in-law to let her know what I was doing, because I had a strong sense that the intervention wasn't going to go well and that she was going to leave. So I didn't want them to be surprised to find out that, to be surprised if she comes to move in with them. They were just down the street. They were literally a block away. 2 blocks. So after I told him that, which was incredibly terrifying for me, I give myself a pat on the back for being so vulnerable with somebody. But he ended up telling his wife, my wife's sister, and then my wife's sister ended up calling her mother for me. And then her mother called, then the sister called me to tell me that her husband told her what I said. and that she called the mother for me, which was not part of the plan. I hadn't prepared for that. Because I don't know what that meant. I didn't stop to ask. What do you mean? He told you what I said. What did he say? What did he say that I said? Because I said a lot. One of the things I said was that I was going to have an intervention with her, and if I determine that it's as bad as I think it is, then I'm done. So my concern now is, well, what did you say? And why did you say it the way that you did? Did you say exactly what I said, or did you paraphrase it? And then with the sister, Julie, like, did you paraphrase what he paraphrased? Or did he tell you exactly, point by point, period by period, what I said? And then you reiterated it perfectly to your mother. We're playing the telephone game. So after she told me that, I rushed her off the phone because I started to panic, and I called the mother and I told her, because I knew my wife's schedule, which was to go to her mother's house before she leaves for work every morning. And this was before that she would have went to, the time was before she would have normally gone to her mother's house. So I called up the mother in a panic and saying, please don't say anything. Please. I was going to call you myself, but I wasn't expecting them to do it for me. Like, this is really important to me. This is my life and my wife. And a few hours later, she called me back, and she wasn't happy with me. And the reason for that is because, and I'm not saying anything that isn't not true. My ex-wife had a proclivity for lying, and she was proud of it. She once said to me in our dining room, I love lying. I just love it. Like, I just don't like telling the truth. I like to lie. So part of my intention with the plan I had laid out was I wanted to work things out behind her back with her family, because I knew that if she talked to them before I did, that would give her an opportunity to lie. I wasn't so much concerned with the truth. I was more concerned about the lie. Because we all know that she's a habitual liar. We all knew that she was a habitual liar. So I didn't want, and I knew that her family would favor her over me, but I just needed to get my part done. This way I could say I did it, I did my best, but if this is what I think it is, I'm done. You guys only know about 2 relapses. I know about 7. And like I said to my ex-wife, every time she relapsed, it's not the drugs that bother me. I don't give a shit about the drugs. You do the drugs all day, all night. But you're not telling me the truth. When I ask you, you say no. And when I catch you, you say you're doing it to piss me off. That's a problem. And even on that day, on May 7th, 2018, I left work early so I can catch my son off the bus, because I had this feeling that if I didn't do that, then I was never going to see him again. Because the cat's now out of the bag. Her mother told her what I was planning. And so I left work early, and I did. I literally pulled up to my condo maybe like 4 minutes before my wife at the time pulled in too. So we were on the same schedule. We had about half hour, 45 minutes to kill. So we did talk a little bit, but not to the degree that I had been planning. She told me that she talked to her mother. I said, well, what did your mother tell you? And she goes, nothing. Joanne stuff. I don't know what that meant. But my last conversation with her mother was, I said to her, well, I'll just talk to her when she gets home. And she said she's not coming home. She's moving out. What? So when she got home, we talked a little bit. I think we got into a bit of an argument. And I had asked her about the pills, because she was taking Kratom for about 1.5 years, which was concerning me, because she had told me that the kratom was an alternative to the opiates, but based on her usage, she had just replaced one addiction for another, one habit for another habit. Because what I learned about kratom is that if you take enough of it, it simulates an opiate effect. So then she and I were sitting on the front porch and we were talking about the pills. And she said that she doesn't take them anymore. And I said, well, did you take any today? And she, yes, admitted to taking one that day. And I said, well, there you go. Like, you didn't stop. You just haven't taken one since the last time you took one. And then she said again, well, I do this to piss you off. And that was always a recurring theme with her. So when I saw how everything was playing out, I decided I don't react. It takes a lot to push me over the edge. And all right, fine, that's fine. Now at this point, I also had found out that she had put herself back on the market for another man. And then once she had moved out, then the neighbors started to tell me about how she was seeing some guy and how she was having an affair. My son was coming to me, I think mom's cheating on you. Oh, thanks, son. Thanks, boy. I was on mom's phone the other day and I was looking through the pictures and I saw a picture of her with a shirt on but no bra, and she was shaking her boobs for someone. What? Yeah, it was a video. It was a video of mom with no bra on but just a shirt. What the hell? I mean, mind you, that's a week after she moved out. And after she moved out, but over the 3 months, that was May, June, July, August. Over those 3 months, that's all I've been hearing. My one friend who lived across the street, who was dating her mother's, my mother-in-law's neighbor, said to me, she said, oh, Ken came to me and he told me that April asked him out for drinks. Of course she did. Of course, whatever. What do you want me to do? She moved out. She left on her own accord. Now, she did move out that day. So after my son got off the bus, they went to go stay with my mother-in-law. And about 2 or 3 hours later, I was outside having a cigarette and I saw my wife come in, and she sat down next to me and said, I don't want to be there. Can I please come back? I'll sleep on the couch. And I said, I don't think it's a good idea. Because what's going to end up happening is, because this happened once before, and I said, this is what's going to end up happening is, I'm going to feel bad that you're sleeping on the couch and I'm going to invite you back upstairs. And then we're just going to get back into this cycle. So no, I don't think it's a good idea that you stay here. And that was it. And she left. But again, she left of her own accord. And a few months prior, in February, I had found out she was using a private Facebook account and putting herself back on the market, if you feel me. Meaning, I was on Facebook and I saw people you may know, and I saw this pretty girl's face, and I said, let me click on this. Something just told me I needed to see what this lady looked like, because she looked like she might be pretty, and it turned out to be my wife under a different account, under a fake account. And what I saw on the profile, it was a private profile, but there were some comments that were showing, and I saw men hitting on her. There was something about Easter, and the one man commented, I would like to put my eggs in your basket. What the hell is that? And then there was another guy, they were chatting, and then she invited him into a private chat, and then in one of the comments, it was her sending him a link to a private chat. So, and that was back in February, so I already knew that there was some funny business going on. I just didn't say nothing about it because I had my own infidelities my own transgressions years prior and recognized I can't get on her case for doing what I did, you know? And I did it worse. I had an affair with my friend's wife. We had a one night stand in a hotel room one night when we went out together by ourselves. Which everybody, her husband knew and my wife knew, and so it's not like we did betray the trust. I'm not saying that. We betrayed the trust of our spouses by doing what we did. And then another time I did have sex with an escort on my couch while my wife and my son were staying at her mother's house. There was a lot of alcohol involved in both of those situations. That's an excuse, because I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't drinking. But it is what it is. That's part of the reason why alcohol, excessive alcohol use and consumption and abuse is considered a transgression, and why you really don't want to be fucking around with alcohol too much, because it does lead to shit like that. Because had I not been drinking, I would have been able to control myself. But now, it was later on in that summer, I think it was July or August of 2018, where my son told me about mom's new boyfriend, quote, mom's new boyfriend. He was a gym teacher. My son thought he was pretty cool because my son was a gamer, was and or is a gamer. And my wife's boyfriend, his methodology of teaching gym was to include Nintendo Wii. And that my son thought that was pretty cool. I don't, because I don't have any respect for public school teachers. But again, when we take into consideration how my ex-wife does do vindictive things with the intent of pissing me off, I did this to piss you off. The way I looked at it was, okay, of course she would date a gym teacher because she knew it would piss me off, because she knows I don't like public school teachers. But you got to consider that I lived with the woman for 13 years. We were married for 8 years at this point, and we had known each other for 22 years. So I know her. I know her ways. I slept next to her for 13 years. Well, for 12 years. We used to have separate rooms when we first moved out together, which was my call. I wanted a separate room. The only reason we got married, the only reason I asked her to marry me, and I was clear about this. I was very clear with my intentions. I always try to be clear because, like I used to say to her, I don't want to put myself in a position where somebody could ever say, well, you didn't say nothing. Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I remember. And I told her the only reason I wanted to get, because at the time, she was going to the doctor a lot, and she was spending a lot of money on doctor bills. My son was on my insurance, and my insurance was fantastic. There was zero copays, no, you can go to any specialist without a referral. It was good shit. So I thought if we got married, then I can put her on my insurance, and then we can be all good. And then all that money that she's wasting on doctor bills can actually go towards paying the bills. Because I'm the one dishing out, let's call it 75 to 80% of the bills because of my job. And I was working, depending on the time of year, it would fluctuate consistently from 40 to 50 hours a week when it was slow to 60 to 70 hours, 70 plus hours when it was busy. I was in a large format printing industry for for 13 years. So there's patterns and there's spikes and there's plateaus. So I know what I'm talking about. I was more married to my job than I was to my wife. So it's not like I was this ideal husband. Plus I drank consistently every week and or every day for the course of from 25 to 37. So, and plus prior to that, I had a steady drug appetite, a steady drug habit from 15 to 25, ranging from methamphetamines, coke, heroin, pot, speed, methamphetamines, ecstasy, PCP, but I never touched caffeine. I drank coffee once when I was 15 and that was it. I never drank it again. Not until I was 40. That's when I started picking up coffee. But so it's not like I didn't have my own fair share of problems. Like my ex-wife, she did say to me once with the pill, in regards to her pill, she goes, well, you drink. This is like my drinking. Okay, I respect that. But here's the thing, is I don't hide my drinking. There's a gallon jug of Sailor Jerry rum on my counter so that whenever a motherfucker walks into this house, whenever a motherfucker walks into my house, they know what they're walking into. Yo, this motherfucker likes to drink rum. But they don't just drink rum, they drink rum. I ain't never seen nobody with a fucking gallon jug. And mind you, that gallon jug was being refilled every Friday. Friday. So, yes, your pill habit is like my drinking habit, but no, because I'm not hiding my alcohol. How did you catch her though? Well, that's the interesting thing, because I learned very early on, that if I ask her about taking the pill, she'll say no. But what would end up happening was I would go on these sleuth missions, these investigations almost, where I would pay attention to everything that she was doing. For instance, my son and I would be watching a movie, she'd be in the bathroom for 5-10 minutes, and I would hear her sniffing the pills, because that's how she did them. Or she would run the water and then sniff the water up, which is an old trick that we learned during the rave days, because we used to be ravers. And when you do a lot of like coke, or when you do a lot, or ketamine, that's another one I forgot. But when you do a lot of like nasal drugs, sometimes it's best to get a little tiny bit of water in your hand and sniff that up just to clear out the nasal passage. It's an old trick. It also makes the high kick in almost immediately. So I would hear her doing these things in the bathroom. I suspected that the sounds coming from the bathroom were what I thought they were. But then every 6 months to a year, just my intuition, I've always been a very intuitive person. I used to say to them all the time, my female intuition's kicking in. I would see something before it happened. I would know something before it happened. My female intuition. And my ex-wife, she would go, you're not a female though. Yeah, I know, but that's why it's weird. Why do I have female intuition? And it would just kind of get brushed off to the side. So it's not like I didn't tell anybody about my psychic nature. It's just, nobody believed me. But I would be in the bathroom and just something would tell me to lift up that thing. Just lift that up for some reason. I don't know why. All right, I lift it up and there's a pill. Oh shit, there's a blue. A blue is code word for oxycodone. Oxycodone. Got your blues, got your reds. And plus where we lived in Toms River, New Jersey, we knew a whole bunch of dealers. A lot of people. We had friends who were dealers. A whole bunch of people who love dealing drugs. I've been around drug dealers my entire life, so it's not like the access to the drugs were difficult. Plus, a lot of our friends were addicted to and or died from opiate use. Don't give any names. Go fuck yourself. Jenna. Sean. Now, when I would catch that, I would call. Now, that's when I would bring it to her attention. That's when I would let her know, like, hey, you're busted. What the fuck is this? Oh, I do this to piss you off. Well, you're doing it to piss me off, but I think you're doing it because you're an addict. You're an addict. You're an addict. Now, ironic. Now, I mentioned the 1st of April of 2019. It was on April 1st. Maybe 2011, maybe 2012. Let's say 2012, just to be safe. Let's say 2012. My goddaughter was born. My kaiju. My wiggle worm. My dormouse. The love of my life. The weekend that my sister-in-law was coming home from the hospital, I didn't go to the hospital with the family. I went fishing. But that night we took a family trip over to my sister-in-law's house because she brought the baby home. And on the way back, my wife was just like kind of zoned out while she was driving because she drove. I never drove. My nieces, they used to ask, why does Derek always sit in the mommy seat? In the passenger seat. That's what they call the passenger seat, the mommy seat. Oh, that's because daddy drives 10 hours a week to work. So I don't like to drive. I spend enough time in the car because my job was an hour away. I don't drive when I'm off. I only drive for work. So my wife always took on the duty of driving. Plus she didn't like the way I drove. So that's a whole other thing. I'm an aggressive. I could be an aggressive driver, and I have no patience for other drivers on the road. So, I don't drive anymore. I don't have a license. My license is suspended because I didn't return my plates for my last car. But now, but that night after we got home, like I said, on the way back, my wife was kind of just zoned out, and she looked like there was something wrong with her. Like there was something heavy on her mind. And we got back to the house and we're just going about our business. I was in the kitchen when my mother-in-law like kicked the door in, not literally kicked the door in, but she came flying through the door and goes, what the fuck is going on in here? I'm oblivious. I don't know. What are you talking about? What are you doing? What do you think? I'm a fucking idiot? Again, I don't know what you're talking about. So what happened was, she explained it to me. While they were at the hospital, while I was fishing, my wife's purse fell over and her bottle of painkillers fell out on the floor. And her mother picked them up and saw them and confronted her about this because she had foot surgery years ago. Why the hell are you still taking painkillers? So, again, this is all going on outside. I had no idea this was going on. That the purse fell over and that the pills fell out. So when she came over and she started to explain to me what happened, I asked for details and she said, well, my daughter thinks I'm a fucking idiot because at the hospital, her purse fell over and the pills fell out. And then she comes to my fucking house and dumps them out like I'm a fucking dummy, not thinking I'm gonna check. And when I took the pills out of the garbage, I saw they were Advil. And I know what she was talking about because after we got home, my wife, she said that she was running out to Wawa real quick. Wawa is like 7-Eleven. It's like a convenience store, if you're not familiar. And what she ended up doing was she got these painkillers, or she got the Advil, put them into the painkiller jar, then went to her mother's house and dumped them into the garbage to make it seem as if she was dumping out the painkillers, but in fact she was dumping out the Advil. But her mother, who, like she had said, is not an idiot, went into the garbage and took out one of the pills and saw it was an Advil, at which point she came to my house. Now, I kicked my wife out that night. That was like that might have been the first or second time I kicked her out. And I said, this is it, I'm done. Because at this point, it had been, I think that was the 5th relapse. She ended up going to rehab for a week. And while she was gone, her family and I, and my father, we had been doing our own research, and we found out that she had stopped, she wasn't even paying the bills anymore. I had her responsible for paying the bills. I was the money man, but she was the one who was taking care of making sure the bills were paid. But she stopped paying the mortgage. Her father took her car to get cleaned, and he went into the trunk and found certified letters saying that our house was about to go into foreclosure. The electric bill, the cable bill, all the gas, all the utilities, they were all hundreds and hundreds of dollars in the arrears. It took me 1.5 years. It took me 1.5 years to get all of that cleared. Well, for the most part. For the last, I never fully paid off the mortgage, the back mortgage payments. So for the last year or so of our marriage, we were always 1 month behind. Because I have a huge fear of money. Money controlled my life. Right? So you gotta understand, like, I'm a money hoarder. I got a real big issue with money. So I wasn't comfortable paying off that last payment because I thought it was going to bring my account balance down way too low for my own liking. So I thought, you know what, fuck it, we'll just leave it at this one thing, at the one arrears, and then once I get like a good bonus or something, then we'll take care of it. So yeah, then I checked the insurance, right? I mentioned that I had got her on my insurance, and my insurance company keeps a log of every single insurance claim that's put through. And what her mother and I found out while she was in rehab was that she was going to 3 different doctors, and each one of those doctors was prescribing her a 30-day supply of pills for, I don't remember exactly how long that had been going on for, and I don't know what she was doing with all those pills. That's 90 pills a month. Was she doing them all? Was she selling them? I don't know. Where'd she go to rehab? In Toms River, on Route 9, there's a 7-Eleven, another convenience store. On Route 9 in Toms River, down the street from Toms River High School West. Toms River High School West, or I think it's called, no, it's called North. The intermediate school next to the high school was called West, but they changed it to North. But there's a 7-Eleven right there, and right across the street, behind some complexes, there's a rehabilitation center, and that's where she stayed. They should have a record of her. April Pignataro. That's not her name anymore, but... Or it could have been under her maiden name. I don't really know. I'm not sure if she actually changed her name legally. She might have. But... How are you feeling talking about all this? I feel really good, actually. I feel like I'm really clear in the air. I'm just talking about my side, my experiences. Because, and you told me to play the victim, and so that's what I'm doing. I'm not talking any kind of shit or anything. I'm just saying what happened. That's it. You want the facts. You said to treat this like I'm giving a deliberation, and that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to keep my bias out of it. Even to the point where she said that she was a liar. Like that's not my conjecture. That's literally what she said to me in the dining room of our condo. And plus, she, like I said, living with someone for 13 years, you know them like you know yourself. You know their mannerisms. So I would know when she was taking drugs and when she wasn't taking drugs, because there was two different sides of her that would come out. And when she was on drugs, she behaved in a certain way. Plus, she would get these like black circles under her eyes. So it was always obvious. I just never called it out because when I would call it out, she would say no. And I'm not really one to press the issue. I was raised on the make your own mistakes rule with my parents. So that's kind of how I treated my wife. I'm not your boss. I didn't even want to marry you. I got married to you out of convenience. Not that I didn't love you. Of course I loved you. That's not in question. And that's what I would say. If I didn't love you, then I wouldn't be here. I don't say it, but I wasn't raised saying I love you after every sentence. You know what I mean? We aren't necessarily affectionate people where it's hugging and kissing all the time. Now with my son, I tried to take a different approach. I love you, and we hug. Maybe not as much as he wanted, maybe not as much as he needed. Well, thank you, Hashem. You did not hug him or tell him I love you any more or less than he needed. So, when I saw the divorce papers and I saw that the reasoning for the divorce was labeled as irreconcilable differences, I was concerned because that's not true. Because that's not what happened. What happened was I told our family, my family from my son's side, I told them that I was going to have an intervention with my wife. And because I was going to have an intervention with my wife, what's the word? It's my belief that retribution. Right? Negatively charged retribution. What is that? Is there a different name for that? Don't say it. Retaliation. So when I look at my relationship with the relationship I don't have with my son, the way that the divorce went through, the claims on the divorce, the proclivity of my ex-wife to ignore my messages and not answer any questions about my son. And even to the point that they once came down in 2020, and I think it was August of 2020, my ex-wife and my son came to my mother's house, which is where I live, to visit my mother under the stipulation that Derek is not there when we come. Which is okay. I didn't put up a fight on it. Of course my feelings were hurt. The year prior, my son's birthday's in August. So the year prior, late July 2019, I had reached out to my ex-wife because I had never missed one of my son's birthdays at this point. His 12th birthday was the first birthday I ever missed. But I had reached out to her and said, hey, what are you guys doing for his birthday? Because I'd like to see you. And her response was, I don't think it's a good idea, but I'll talk to him. And that was it. I never heard back. The condo blowing up? And the lawsuit? What? Wait. There's a couple things going through my head right now. What do you want me to prioritize? Prioritize the fact that you had asked her to come move back in. Okay, yeah. So over that summer of 2018, from June to August, I had asked her 3 times if she was going to come move back in. The first time was about a week after she left, and I said, do you want me to move to my mother's or my grandmother's? This way you and Desmond could have the house? And she said, no, don't do that. All right. Then maybe a few weeks, maybe a month later, my son was sleeping over, and she came in and she was going through the fridge. And I said, hey, listen, I got an idea. This idea is predicated on, I'm just saying in general, that this idea is predicated off of that Bruce Willis movie, Unbreakable, where he and his wife, they were separated, but they lived under the same roof. she slept in the master bedroom and he slept in the bunk bed with his son. So my son had bunk beds at the time, so I had suggested, why don't you guys move back in? You can have the big room and I'll just stay in the bunk bed with him. He can have the top, I'll have the bottom. And she said, no, I like things the way that they are. All right. So maybe about another month later, a couple weeks or another month later, I was texting with her and I asked, are you or are you not moving? Do you guys plan on moving back in? She said no. And there was a reason why I had asked that question. I had been smoking a blunt with her friend who lived across the street, and her friend made a really good point. And she said, listen, if you're going to move on, you got to get her shit out of this house. Because her shit's here, her energy's in this house. You need to clear the energy. And I went, yeah, you know what? That makes so much sense. So then I proceeded to ask her, are you guys planning on moving in or moving out? Or are you not coming back? And she said, we're not coming back. I told you. All right, no problem. I'll give you until next week. I'll give you until next weekend to come and get your stuff. I'll bag all your stuff up and you can put it in your mother's house in the basement. Because I need all that space. I need all that space now. And if you don't pick it up within 8 days, or I'm sorry, within 7 days, I'm going to put it all in the crawl space. And her response was, do not put anything in the crawl space. There's no room at my parents' house, blah, 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 blah. None of my business. So I gave them 8 days. So the day that I gave them as a cutoff, because I had bagged up 13 industrial garbage bags of her things, and I left it in the living room for 7 days. At the end of the 7th day, I said, give them one more day. On the 8th day is the night of the 8th day is when I went, okay, that's enough. That's enough. Cut it off. Time to put your foot down again. When is the last time going to be the last time? This is the last time. I'm done. So that's when I proceeded to take all 13 bags and put them into the crawl space. Now later on, months, what was it? That was in August of 2018. In January of 2018, I got a letter at my mother's house because I had moved down here by this point. I had stayed in the condo up until the end of September of 2018. And then I went to go move down the street with, I just had to get away from everything. There's just a lot of bad energy, a lot of bad vibes going on in that neighborhood. So my grandmother lived 15 minutes down the street, so that's where I ended up going. And I ended up sleeping on her little couch in her living room for 2 months. And I had paid the bill, I had paid the utilities up until November. I had prepaid them because I quit my job because I was starting to take a pursuit down the mystical road. It's an unconventional path, but it was one that I had been called to for my entire life, and I decided in the very beginning of 2018, I was trying to make positive changes in my life, and one of those changes involved starting to listen to the intuition that I had been hearing, the voice that had been in my head for my entire life that was telling me that I was destined for great things. All right, fuck it. You know what? My life sucks right now. Let me just see what happens if I follow through with this, right? And so that's what I did. And it just happened to be that over the next several months, as I was making these improvements to myself, I started to notice that everything else around me was falling apart. Because I had a wake-up call a few months prior. In October of 2017, I had taken a break from drinking. I had been sober for 2 months. That was the longest I went without drinking since I was 25. I was 37 at the time. That was right after my 37th birthday. So from age 25 up until 37, I was drinking almost every day. Sometimes every day. Every weekend for certain. The only thing that would fluctuate was if I was drinking during the week. After 2 months of being sober, I had a wake-up holy shit. What the hell did I do to my life? I looked around me and I started to see just how fucked up my situation was. My relationship with my wife, my relationship with my son, my relationship with my job, which I couldn't stand. And I had that wake up call that said, I have to do something now. I still have it written down in my room. I did a free writing exercise. It's like 5 minutes of just writing. And that's where I had my epiphany that it's time to make a change. And that was like the major thing. And from that point on, once I popped that cork in myself, over the course of the next year, I only drank 3 times, on 3 occasions. My sister's wedding, the weekend of my sister's wedding, the previous Christmas, and the previous Thanksgiving. So I wrote that in October, that it's time to make a change. It's time to get my shit together. That was October 2017. I didn't drink again until Thanksgiving of 2017, and then I drank again on Christmas of 2017. And then my sister got married in March of 2020. Did I say 2018 or 2017? I wrote October 2017. I drank again Thanksgiving 2017, and I drank a second time on Christmas of 2017. My sister got married in March of 2018. That weekend that we were in California, I drank there too. Not to the excessive points. On the wedding, we got pretty drunk, but it was a wedding. It was in February of 2018 where I found out that my wife was putting herself back on the market, as I had mentioned earlier. It was December/January, December 2017/January 2018, where I made a pact with God. I made a vow with God, right? What did I say? If you give me a reason to believe, then I'm all yours. And from that point on, my Lord, the one God of Israel, the God of Abraham, has been giving me reason and reason and reason and reason to believe more and more and more. Until eventually, about a year and a half ago, where my Lord led me down the path to find out that I'm of Jewish heritage. Well, I'm of Israelite heritage. On my father's side, on my father's father's side. So, if you know anything about Jewish law, you know that the Talmud is the foundation for all of Halakha, which is Jewish law. And if we turn to, in the Talmud, if you go to Tractate Megillah 13a, there's a discussion going on between the rabbis and the Gemara about who is and is not a Jew. And it's clearly defined that a Jew is one of Israelite descent who has abandoned all forms of idolatry, including money, because money's an idol. An idol is not necessarily a deity. An idol is anything that you place above yourself and above God. So a Jew is any Israelite who abandons all forms of idolatry to be of service to God, to be of service to Hashem. Okay, perfect. Because now I just found out that my father has Israelite ancestry on my father's side, which is great. Now, traditionally, people believe that it's one's Jewishness is passed down from the mother's side, which I'm not saying isn't the case, but it's not always the case. And you can go to Orthodox. There's enough Orthodox writings on it where you can find out, and even Torah specifically, where it lays out that sometimes it has to come through the father. For certain roles in the Israelite community, it has to come through the father. And that's for those who are of the priest class. Now, if you know anything about me, then you know that for the past year and a half, well, more predominantly the past year and a half, but the past 7 years of my life have been devoted to learning Hebrew, learning Torah scripture, and becoming more acclimated to Torah consciousness and understanding the law. So where have you been these past 7 years? Well, these past 7 years I've been studying. And I've been doing the inner work the inner emotional, mental, and spiritual work, because spirituality is a very big part of my life, and has been a very big part of my life for the past 7 years. My spiritual convictions go back a lot further than that, but I didn't really start to take them overtly serious until 7 years ago. Covertly, I had always had my own spiritual understandings. Hashem has been talking to me ever since I was a kid. I've always had the voice talking to me. And I've always had those external experiences where God where God reveals himself. But for me, I just had a hard time believing it. That's the hard part. And that's where we have to get into irrational thinking, because in order to properly get a proper apprehension, a proper grasp of God and his ways, we have to be willing to believe in things before there's anything to see. Does that make sense? I'll say it again, just in case it didn't. We have to be willing. That's it. We just have to be willing to believe in things that we cannot see. If we're willing to do that, if we're willing to believe in something before we are able to see it, then God will go out of his way to present us evidence that will encourage us to believe more. Because faith, belief, trust, these are all things that they're based on a leveling and a ranking system. It's not like you just see one thing and then, oh, okay. No, it takes time. It takes a lot of reprogramming also. Because once these, we'll call them supernatural happenings, take place, a lot of the time it goes against our ingrained belief system to go, that can't happen. That's too good to be true. That's impossible. But it's when we are willing to accept that which is impossible is actually possible, that's when the Lord will present us with more opportunities to develop and nurture that faith, that belief, and that trust. Because from the Jewish perspective, and this isn't necessarily going to be the case with everybody, so you can't trust a non-Jew to explain the Jewish mindset. Faith evolves into belief, belief evolves into trust. Trust is a whole different ball game. Yeshua Rabbeinu, Rabbi Jesus, he was teaching, if you read the New Testament, after reading the Tanakh, Torah and the Tanakh, after reading that and you have some context to where he came from and why he was doing what he was doing, what we notice is that he was teaching his disciples what's called bitachon. Bitachon is a Hebrew word that represents the idea, the concept of trust between the Jew and God. I cannot have bitachon with another human being. Because through Torah, what Torah is teaching us is how to trust God more than we trust ourselves. Which sounds scary, which sounds like it's almost borderline delusional. And to an extent, yeah, it is. Because you have to allow yourself to humor delusional thinking, quote, delusional thinking, in order to have these impossible experiences and then to recognize them as actually happening and not too good to be true. Now, just like it's not a coincidence that when I was saying before about being at Good Friday Mass, while we were reading Isaiah 52, that I was seeing my own life reflected back at me, because the way that Isaiah is describing what people believe is Jesus, he's also describing me. He's describing anyone who has been in that type of situation before. Not just Jesus. Anyone. If the shoe, it's one of those, if the shoe fits, wear it. Do you understand what I mean? So the Quran teaches us And this I already knew this, but the Quran teaches is the only capital B book, Abrahamic book, that spells it out clearly. It says there are two ways to interpret the Quran. There's the literal interpretation, and then there is the allegorical interpretation. Only God knows the true interpretation. Now, what it doesn't say, and what it could say, and how I see it, because I do spend a lot of time studying Aristotle, the works of Aristotle. So, for instance, my resume, categories on interpretation, book 1 of Prior Analytics. I'm 3/4 of the way done with book 2 of Prior Analytics, and almost about 45% done with his first 4 books on physics. So I'm not an uneducated man. I just don't have a conventional academic education, right? So working with Aristotle, one of his big teachings, especially in the later books, is the importance of developing one's faculty of contraries, which means that one can hold two conflicting ideas as true at the same time. So, and what I mean by that is, if we go back to the teaching of the Quran, there's the literal interpretation and the allegorical interpretation. Or the allegorical interpretation, which we can then reword it as there is the literal translation and or the allegorical translation, which means that both are true at the same time. There can be a literal and allegorical translation that's specific to you. Now, mind you, there are teachers of the Quran, there's teachers of the Torah, there's teachers of the gospel, and they'll tell you that you need someone trained to teach you. All right, no problem, I'll accept that. But the greatest teacher of the word is God. So anytime I have a question, if my intuition says, ask God what this means, God will give me a translation. God will give me an idea. And typically what that means is he'll show me an instance of my own life that is applicable to the teaching in question. So for instance, Isaiah 52, where it's talking about this mystery man who's going to be taking on the sins of everybody else and who's going to be punished and crushed by God for things that he didn't do. Other people did these things and he's going to take the blame for it and keep his mouth shut the whole time. He's not going to play the victim card. But right now, God, my Lord, as we saw earlier, the Lord is telling me to at least put the hot spotlight, the hot seat, the spotlight on them. This way I can get through the emotional blocks and all the bullshit that's getting in the way. Because because there's a bigger point that we're making here. And Isaiah 52, it explains Jesus, but it also explains the story and life of the prophet Joseph, son of Jacob, who was sold into slavery by his brothers. But because he was sold into slavery, he eventually became the Lord of Egypt. Pharaoh put him in charge of all he was the operations manager of Egypt. And later on in his life, about 20 years later, he's reintroduced to his brothers. They didn't know they were talking at Joseph, but Joseph knew he was talking to them. And eventually, when he reveals his identity to them, they prostrate to him and beg for forgiveness. Please don't make us slaves. Oh my God, please, because they got busted. But now Joseph, being the witness to his own life, who saw the sequence of events that led to him becoming the Lord of Egypt, the operations manager of the entirety of the land of Egypt, from the point of where he was sold into slavery when his brothers beat the shit out of him and sold him to slavers, to the point that he was reintroduced to them, he had a very clear vision of how everything played out, the sequence of events, the chain of predication. so that when they were begging his forgiveness, he did not let his anger and his lust for revenge take over him. Instead, what he said to them, he said, so, it wasn't you who sent me here, it was God. And he made me the Lord, a father to Pharaoh, and the Lord of the whole of Egypt. Now later on, after Jacob dies, the brothers again, they come to Joseph and they said, listen, before our father died, he told us to come and seek forgiveness from you. We're sorry, just please don't make us slaves. And Joseph again reiterated to them, I am not a replacement for God. Although you intended for evil, God intended for good. In other words, everything that you were doing to me, everything that you did to me, God was doing for me. But look at all these lives that have been saved because of what you did. And if you don't know the story of Joseph, I would highly recommend that you go back and read that portion of Genesis. I don't need to tell you, but Joseph was gifted with, he had the gift of oniromancy, which is dream interpretation. And the Pharaoh at the time had a troubling dream, and none of his magicians and no one in his court and no one in Egypt was able to properly translate the dream. But he had heard rumor of a Hebrew slave that was in the prison who was a dream interpreter. So he called on Joseph to interpret the dream, and Joseph said to him, not me, I'm not interpreting it. God is. You're just going to tell me the dream, and God's going to tell me what it means. And the dream, the message that Joseph received from God was, in 7 years from right now, there's going to be a great famine that's going to last for 7 years. So what you have to do, Pharaoh, is you have to hire somebody who's going to be capable of stockpiling food so that when the famine hits, we have 7 years to stockpile food so that when the famine hits, we have a surplus and there's no room for error. No one's going to starve, essentially. And that's where Pharaoh hires Joseph and says, all right, well, you seem to know what the hell you're talking about. The job's yours. And Pharaoh took off his ring of power and he put it onto Joseph's hand. Now, how's that relative is when we go back to the story of Rabbi Jesus being betrayed by his own people, being betrayed by his own family, the Jewish family. He was betrayed by them and put on the cross for being what he was, for standing up and going against the rabbis of the time, being sold out by his own brother, Judas. Not blood brother, but you know what I mean. His brother, his boy. Or then we could translate that back to me, getting sold out by my brother-in-law. Getting sold out by my brother-in-law. Yeah, everyone's going to be really proud of you. Are they? Did you ever tell anybody that you said that to me? Did you ever tell my son? Jesse, my boy. Charlie Chan, did you ever tell my son what happened that day? Did you ever tell him that you sold me out to Juby? Did you tell him that you sold me out to TT? And then that she told Nan? I don't even know what the hell she told her. And then Nan, my suspicion is that the mother told her daughter to move out. Just like I'm sure that the mother told the daughter to go to a lawyer and to fuck me with him. Get him for alimony, take away his son. I believe that the mother was the mastermind because my wife wasn't too good on thinking. She wasn't very good on thinking for herself. Because whenever she thought for herself, she would get herself into some shit. So in this situation, I believe it's safe to presume that my mother-in-law was the mastermind of a conspiracy against me. But then again, my son was a little fucker too. So I wouldn't be surprised if, because he had a proclivity for hating his father to everyone but his father. So he would talk a lot of shit. One of the guys I worked with actually caught him giving me the finger behind my back one day. I was standing right in front of him, but my back was turned towards him, and he gave me the finger. So that taught me early on, don't ever turn my back on my son, because that little cocksucker, he'll put a fucking knife in my back. So I don't believe that he's above. I don't think that he's above. I don't believe that he's above conspiring against me. Now, as for my father-in-law, as for my ex-father-in-law, he's not respected. Listen, I'm talking about years ago. I don't know how things are now, but they would lie to that guy. They would call him a piece of shit. They would talk down to him. He was a joke. He was a joke to his family, especially to his wife. I don't know how the relationship was when I wasn't there, but when there was people around, damn. I said to my mother-in-law once, I said to her, you wouldn't be able to handle a man like me. Why? Because I know how to use the word no. She was a matriarchal. Hers was a matriarchal house, not a patriarchal house. It was a matriarchal house. And I believe, well, you got to understand too, is that they actually helped her they helped her go on dates before. She would lie to me and say that she was going out with her friends, but then she would meet a man at her mom's house. And then even that, like 2 months after she moved out, we were still married. Now mind you, she moved out in May of 2018. She moved out in May of 2018. We didn't get divorced until April of 2019. So there's that whole year. I didn't know, but that guy, I suspect, and I believe in a court of law, I'd be proven correct, that the gym teacher, her boyfriend, is the same guy that she's with right now. Because the guy that she's with right now, she has been with since at least Easter of 2019. Because one time I did sneak on my mother-in-law's Facebook page looking for a picture of my son, and I found it. I did find a picture of him. And I found a picture of my ex-wife's boyfriend from Easter. So Easter was only like a few weeks after our divorce, which means that either she had been with this man prior, or they just posted pictures of him after the fact, after the divorce took place. Because why is this guy sitting at the table like he's part of the family? Unless he had been introduced and acquainted with everybody. So it's my suspicion that if my ex-wife is dating or was dating a gym teacher, then that's the guy. And she had been dating him since at least August of 2018, which is when we were still married. Now, were they having a sexual relationship? Knowing my ex-wife, it's not impossible that they had seen each other's genitalia. Seen and or touched each other's genitalia. There's a woman of great passion. Put it like that. So, Your Honor, why do I not pay my alimony? Why don't we direct the question to my ex-wife and her family? Why don't I pay my alimony? We'll give them an opportunity to answer before I answer. Or after I answer. Because that's why. Everything I just laid out is why. Because if I pay the alimony, I'm participating in a conspiracy, I believe. By capitulating with the demands of the court, who more than likely is not aware that there was malicious intent predicating that divorce because there wasn't full context. Because had I been there, perhaps I could have voiced my side of the story and things would have been a little bit differently. But as we learned earlier, the divorce papers were sent to the wrong address intentionally. Well, my mother-in-law said they were coming to my mother's house, but they went to my grandmother's house. And I didn't get the papers until the day of the divorce, 5 hours after the hearing. So I had no idea that I was divorced. And had I been there with the alimony, I would have fought that tooth and nail. But as I said, the Lord my God told me, don't do anything. Well, then why did you pay 2 months of alimony? Because you did pay twice. Yes and no. My mother did. I didn't want her to pay it. But she said, I don't want you to go to jail for not paying this. Now, the reason I wasn't planning on paying it was because I wanted to test the waters, so to speak. I wanted to see if they would allow me to have a relationship with my son, even if I didn't pay. Because if you're not going to let me have a relationship with my son unless I pay, then I'm not going to pay. And what I've learned over these past 6 years, which we've only really touched the surface. There's a lot more. I got 170 journals that go into more detail, but as I've seen from my own experience, 6.5 years later, or 6 years later rather, because the divorce was on April 1st. April 18th today? April 19th. Happy 6-year anniversary! Yeah! Oh no, my Lord is telling me, my Lord, what are you telling me? Not only can we get the divorce reversed, but then we can also have all of the fines and fees, and not to mention all of the damage, all the emotional damage. Not me, I'm fine, but my mother. My mother who had to have her 44-year-old son living with her for the past 6 years. You know what kind of stress that's been putting on her marriage? And on her? Now the simple response, why don't you get a job and move out? I work for God. I'm a servant of God. I don't have time for a regular job. I don't work for money. I work for Hashem. And again, if we need proofs on that, I got 170 journals that'll back me up. 170 journals that have been written from June 3rd, 2018 up until this past full moon, Passover. The first day of Passover. Well, the second half of the first day of Passover and the second half of the second half of the first day of Passover and the first half of the second day of Passover. Which every good Jew will know that the second day of Passover is the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, which is where all yeast breads have to be burnt and removed from the household. Now, in Yiddish, it's the festival of matzah, because unleavened bread and matzah are the same thing, essentially. So what I'm thinking is, I forgive myself, because I have an alimony bill for $6,000, or I'm sorry, $9,000. I forgive that. I forgive what lies were told about me. I forgive the conspiracy against me. I forgive being sold out by my brother-in-law, by Judas Jang. I forgive being sold out by Judas Jang. I forgive my wife for her adulterous natures. I forgive my wife's boyfriend for having sex with my wife while we were still married. Because my question, like if I had him in a court, I had him in an interrogation room, the only question I would ask him is, well, no, there'd be two questions. There'd be two questions that I would ask him. Is, what have you heard about me? And you can't lie, you're under oath. Like, you have to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. What is it that you've heard about me? And more importantly, and we'll deal with this one first, did you have sexual relations with my wife prior to April 1st, 2019? And I don't necessarily mean penis in vagina. I mean penis in mouth, mouth on vagina. Any sort of sexual interaction. Did you have any degree of sexual interaction, or even kissing? Did you have any kind of sexual interaction with my wife prior to April 1st, 2019? And then the follow-up question is, since your relationship with her started, I actually know what, are you Desmond's tennis coach by chance? Are you Desmond's tennis coach? If so, what did you think when I donated $350 to the tennis team last year? Right before Passover. What did you think about that? And what did you hear about me? What kind of things have you heard about me from when you first started dating my wife to now, the present? What kind of things have you heard about me? And the reason I want to know, and the reason why it's so important that I know, is that just in case this does, and I don't have a choice, but this does have to go to court, I need to know so that I have a proper case to present. I mean, I feel I could be wrong. I don't know anything about the law. I don't know nothing about the law. For all I know, if I went to a court and said all this stuff, it's not impossible. It's not impossible that I'll get laughed out of court. That the system is, because I'm not a lawyer. I'm a lawyer in Torah law. I know Torah law. But then that brings into question, well, how do you know they're going to tell the truth? I trust God. I trust God that if I am guilty of anything, then I deserve it. There's a Torah law. There's one law in particular that says that if a man marries a woman and he's got issues with her and he accuses her of not being a virgin when they got married. Okay, so a man and a woman get married. After they're married, for one reason or another, he accuses her of not being a virgin where she claimed to have been. If the woman's father, if the woman's father can present evidence proving that she was a virgin up until the point that they were married, then the man, the husband, will have to pay the father, I think it's like 70 shekels of silver, but then also be flogged. It's all right, I point back. So the point is that if a false accusation is made by the husband, then he's opening himself up to being flogged by the court, by the Jewish court. All right? Now, on the other hand, let's say the man makes the accusation for good reason, and the girl's father cannot present a case, and it's ruled and it's proven that the woman misled her husband intentionally. Then she is to be brought out into public and stoned to death. But we have to pay attention. Like, if she really is guilty, we're not talking about like people who are falsely accused and falsely tried. We're talking about real life situation where situation A, the husband falsely accuses his wife and gets caught falsely accusing. He's going to get flogged. As rightfully so. But if that wife really did lie about being a virgin and is caught having perpetrated a fraud, it's a death penalty. So, what you are telling me is that by bringing these accusations out into the open, what I'm doing is I'm opening myself up to being flogged and having to pay a fine to my ex-father-in-law because I'm making it up. But now on the flip side of it, would I do that as a God-fearing Jew? Would I bring false accusations against my wife and her family and my son, who has told me that he hated me and then laughed about it? First he cried and then he laughed to my face. And that I brought it on myself, but I'm making a point. And to be perfectly honest, like, even though it did hurt when he said that, I understood why he would say that. You understand? But for the sake of transparency, it's worthy to note that. So, I mean, in that situation, and again, that's why I don't pay, that's another reason why I don't pay my alimony. Your Honor, why don't I pay my alimony? Because I've been waiting 6 years for the court to call me in for questioning so that I could say, not guilty, here's why. Unless you want to go to trial. 'Cause I don't mind. I don't mind. I got better things to do, but in this situation, I got nothing better to do than this. This would be a pleasure of mine. It would be an honor of mine to glorify my God in a court of law against those people who I believe, strongly believe, wronged me and my family and my reputation, which goes into the other thing. Because I would even be so curious as to call specific family friends into question as witnesses and say, what have you heard about me? And the reason I say that is when my mother-in-law, when my ex-mother-in-law said that when you're dead to me since you bailed on your son. I didn't bail on my son. I bailed on my wife, who bailed on me. Because when I left the house to go stay with my grandmother, my intention was to come back. I didn't expect my house to blow up. I didn't expect the water pipe to burst in my condo. I didn't expect the condo association's lawyers to find me at my mother's house. Thank God they did. Which is why I'm curious. It's like, okay, well, the lawyer of the insurance company of the condo association knew where to find me, but the divorce papers didn't know where to find me? I don't understand. How does that work? I mean, is that a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that I'm under the impression that there was malicious intent, also a conspiracy to keep me out of the court so that I couldn't talk? Because I remember saying to my wife, in December 2017, we were messaging back and forth, and things got a little bit heated. And I had made an accusation that she was weaponizing our son. And I had said when is the divorce date? Because I'm gonna collect my shit so that I can throw it in, I can make a fucking giant scene in the courtroom about how you're weaponizing him. You're weaponizing the child. And she didn't respond to that. And probably for good reason. I would imagine that under some kind of legal counsel of some sort, that it was suggested that she not comply and not give in to that demand, if that makes sense. Of course it makes sense. So, I mean, kidnapping, I could see that. That word's come to my mind before, that they kidnapped my son, technically. They used the law to kidnap my son. He may not even realize it. But that's not, it wouldn't be the first time that something like that happened. It's not like, and it's not like, I mean, if we want to call character, if we want to call their character into this, I mean, the father owned a business a long time ago. He used to own a business, and then he sold it to a corporation. He incorporated. And what ended up happening was the whole family worked there. The mother, the sister, the mother's other daughter, and the father, like they still worked there, but they worked for the corporation. And they kept their old jobs. So the mother was in charge of payroll. And they ended up getting caught doctoring the payroll in favor of themselves. So they would leave early, but then alter the time clock to make it look like they stayed there later than what they did. And they got caught, and the whole family got fired. The father, the mother, and the other daughter. It's very shameful. So it's not as if these people, based on my own personal experience, I mean, mind you, it's been 7 years, it's been a long time. Hey, it's been a long time. I don't shine shoes no more. You feel me? So, knowing them to the degree to which I know them, and taking into consideration, these people, they think they're like Staten Island gangsters. Yeah, there's a whole lot of them. The family. Fuck your family. That's not very godly of you. No, it's not. My Lord, please forgive me. I forgive them. I forgive the whole lot of them. I forgive every single one of them for everything that I think they did, anything that they really did that I don't know about, that was predicated on malicious intent towards me. Even if that includes a conspiracy to take my life. Which I wouldn't put it past them. My wife did threaten me once. And she said that her father would shoot me. And what was that over? Why did she say that? Oh, because I threatened to cut the dog in half. Because she threw my Xbox 360. She threw it. And I said, if you want to play that game, I'll chop the dog in half. This way we both get custody. If you do that, my father will fucking kill you. He will literally shoot you. Noted. I'll keep that in mind. So. Now, mind you, and thank you, Lord, for reminding me, this is all speculation. Like, I couldn't prove any of these things. I mean, it's probably just a coincidence that my mother hasn't talked to my son in 5 years or 4.5 years. Or she hasn't seen him in 4.5 years. I think she said that he messaged her once on her birthday and said happy birthday, and that was it. She tried to talk to him again, but he didn't respond. I think she said that there was other times that she messaged him, but he didn't respond. I know there was countless times I messaged him, he didn't respond. He has me blocked right now on all of his social media. He has me blocked on Facebook, he has me blocked on Instagram. And when I brought that up to my ex-wife a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, she said, well, you blocked him first. And she's right. She's right, I did. Because we did become friends on Facebook. We did become Facebook friends. And around his birthday of 2021 or 2022, around his birthday of 2022, I had become actively like commenting on his posts. But then it dawned on me, like I was getting very obsessed. I was getting very obsessed with commenting on his posts. So, and I felt myself saying inflammatory things about his mother. I once made a joke. It was a half joke. It wasn't a full joke. And I called his mother a nasty woman. And I felt that was really wrong of me, and I shouldn't have been doing that because I'm putting him into a position that's not fair to him. So, in order to keep myself away from communicating with him any further, I blocked him for a couple months until I can get this way I can continue doing my own work and not get distracted and not get him all fucked up by getting him in trouble by doing shit that's on me. You know what I mean? It was more like I didn't want to make his life any harder than what it already was. Because he's my son. He's my little baby boy. Technically, he's a bastard son, but look at Ned Stark and Jon Snow. Just because Jon Snow was a bastard didn't mean that Ned Stark didn't love him more or less than his other children. That's a Game of Thrones reference. Desmond Snow. But you said you got married. I know, we got married when he was like 3 years old. So, whack, whack. Had we got married when she was still pregnant, then that would have been a completely different situation. But, like I said, my plan was never to marry this woman. I didn't want to marry her. The reason we had a kid was because I didn't want her to die of a drug overdose and get blamed for it. Because that was the path I was taking in life at that time. That I had a death wish. I wanted to die. But I couldn't get rid of this girl because she kept on following me around everywhere. So I had a vision one night of the future. 1 year in the future was the vision. And what it showed me was that she was going to die of a drug overdose because she was following me around on one of my crazy adventures. And the only way to prevent that from happening was to have a baby with her. And so that's what I did. I said, hey, maybe it's time that we started cleaning up our act. Because we were really doing a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, a lot of partying back then. So having a baby seemed like the wisest idea for her because she was the type of person that just needed to be loved. I couldn't love her the way that she wanted to be loved, but I also knew that she loved me more than any other human being in the entire world. So the only thing I could do for her was give her a piece of me, and that would be my golden seed, so that she can have a piece of me forever. And I told her, and again, like I was always clear with my intentions, and I told her that I was only going to stay with her until he was 18, at which point then I was going to go back on my Death Wish party. My Death Wish adventures that would hopefully get me killed. But and then again, like I said, the only reason we got married was to get her on my insurance. It was for money reasons. And that was another thing too. About a few days after she moved out, she did call me and say, "Listen, you got to get over this marriage. You have to figure out how to learn to see me as a friend, not your wife anymore." So she said, "I'm already done with I'm over the marriage." So she was already done with the marriage before the marriage was taken away. Now we talked once. Whose idea was it? Well, it was a combination. I said to her once, if you're not going to move back, then maybe we should get a divorce. Then we should get divorced. But she was the one who went to the lawyer. So she started it. She initiated it. And even then, but even then I had brought up, why are you doing that? Why are you going to a lawyer? We don't need a lawyer. What do you need a lawyer for? Because we don't have anything except for the house. You already said you're not moving back in. I'm not paying you alimony, so that's not an option. And we have custody worked out. We could just do this online. It'll be really quick and easy. And at that point, I had already quit my job so that I can follow my own pursuits. So, and my intention then, just like it is now, is not to get another job, but to continue working towards my goal, which is to be self-sustaining and to make a living off of my own work. But now things have changed a little bit with God, because I don't worry about money anymore. That's not my business. When God needs me to have money, I have money. Like right now, I asked God for, a few days ago, I asked God for a loan for $100. 2 days later, my mother was gifted $300. And she said, do you want a $50 loan? I said, yeah. I just asked God for 100. Do you want 100? No. Do you want 50? All right. I don't know when I'm going to be able to pay you back, though. It's all right. So, yeah, I have money right now. I have about $30 left. $36 left. But for the past year, my bank account has not had more than 27 cents in it. From October, let's say October 1st, give or take 4 or 5 days. Since October 1st of 2018, up until October of 2019, I had no money. I mean, that's not 100% true. In May/June of 2019, I remembered that I had a profit share account with an old company that I worked for. It was only like $2,000, but when you don't have money, $2,000, that's a fortune, bruh. When you go a year without having any money, and there's a reason for that. It's not laziness. So the way it works is, when servants of God, we're not supposed to have money. Like, go back to the teachings of Jesus, Rabbi Jesus, where he sends his apostles out and he says, don't bring any money, don't bring any food, don't bring a change of clothes, just bring your sandals. And one version says, and only bring your sandals and your staff. When I was talking about Bitachon training, that's what I'm talking about, is just take the very barest of necessities and trust that God is going to provide for you everything else. Even if that means have to go hungry for a little bit. But God won't let you die. As long as you're serving God, if your intention is in service to God, then the Lord will make sure that you always have exactly what you need when you need it, even if it's just the bare minimum. So there's a book, an old Jewish text called Shar HaBitahon, the Gate of Trust, where it teaches anytime someone does something kind to you, that's God. That's God acting through that person. So don't not say thank you. Always show gratitude to the messenger, but at the same time recognize that the messenger is just doing a service to God by serving you. So it's not that I leech off my mother. Far from it. My mother is just providing a haven, a safe haven for me, a safe space for me to work, for me to grow, and for me to continue doing my business. Because my life is my business. Which was trademarked, which was established. Hey, John Love. Which was established in August of 2020. So we're 5 years in service. Now the original intention of forming that company was to put myself in the mindset of being a business owner and having to devote all of my time and energy into my business, because it was also in October 2017 where I had proposed to my wife and said, because I wanted to get out of the industry I was in. And so I suggested, why don't we start a business? Why don't we form a business together? And she said, no. I refuse to start a business with you because you would be the worst business owner ever. Because that's all you would do. I see how you are with your job, but it would only get worse because now it's your own business. All right. That's kind of the point, but I see what you're saying. And so we didn't. But in 2020 is when I decided to take this step to myself. I decided to take the step myself and go, fuck it. If I start this thing, I don't have a choice anymore. Like, I have to work on it. And what do? We're in the business of personal empowerment. Personal empowerment through self-discovery. Self-love. Learning how to love yourself. Because the greatest commandment in all the Bible, in all the Torah laws, there's one commandment that supersedes all of them. And the old rabbis, they said, this one commandment is the only one you need to worry about. Everything else in the Bible, everything else in Torah is just commentary. And that is, love your fellow like you love yourself. That doesn't mean do unto others as you would have done to you. What that means is do unto others that you would do to yourself. You feel? Rabbi Jesus expands on that and says, love your enemy like you love yourself. But who's a man's worst enemy? It's the face that he sees in the mirror. Because anything that anyone ever does to you, you deserve it. You didn't do anything not to deserve it. I'm not saying, I've been playing the victim card this whole time, but in reality, I'm not a victim. Because everything they did or didn't do to me was predicated on good intention on their part. I believe. Part of me doesn't want to believe that they would have malicious intention towards me, but I could be wrong. You know, I can't say for certain that people did or didn't do something, you know? Does breading have yeast in it? Doug. So yeah, I feel much better. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Hashem. Is there anything else you want me to talk about? Or did we literally cover everything? A 2-hour disposition. You're good. All right, perfect. So, God says, thank you for hanging out with us. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed getting all that off my chest. But I gotta go eat something now.